Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the League of Women Voters of Santa Barbara's first Community Forum of 2021, Visions of Hope, pandemic-inspired success stories and supporting our most vulnerable neighbors. I'm Vijay Jamala Marika, president of our Santa Barbara League, and this meeting is being live streamed on Facebook on our webpage. The webinar recording will be uploaded to our YouTube site for later viewing. We apologize we don't have simultaneous Spanish translation like we usually do, but Zoom limitations don't allow us to record our events. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place their home. Please thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to continuing our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. And now I have some announcements for the League. First, if you enjoy our forums and you are not yet a member of our League, we hope you will join us by going to our website and contacting Susan Moore, our membership director. Susan has planned a new member orientation on February 11th at 5:30 p.m. So you can learn more about the League at that meeting. All members are welcome to join us, and all members, not just the new members, are welcome to join us. Second, as a follow-up to this forum, we have planned a follow-up virtual discussion group for our members, and the Zoom meeting will be on Tuesday, February 9th at 5:30 p.m. And lastly, our next community forum will be next month, Wednesday, February 17th at noon. And we will present information about the work of our League, the work of our new state redistricting commission, and how you can get involved. Please check our web calendar for the details of all upcoming events. And I've tried to put the Zoom link over there on the calendar also. So let's start the forum on Visions of Hope. I think you will agree this is a very timely topic. We're very pleased to welcome our distinguished panelists. Thank you for taking time to be here. A big thank you to the organizers and moderators of this forum, the Edward League board members, Reve Moran and Pam Flint-Tambo. And now I will turn the program over to Vice President of Administration, Pam Flint-Tambo, who is also co-chair of our Social Policy Committee. Pam, you're on.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, we have 4 speakers from local agencies and programs designed to address some of the most pressing needs of our community, needs that have grown exponentially during the pandemic, including homelessness, food insecurity, childcare, and mental health. They will describe the objectives of their programs and how they've been affected by the pandemic. They will also let us know how the pandemic has provided opportunities for them to think differently about these programs and to try new approaches to meet the increased needs of some of our most vulnerable neighbors. Each speaker will make a presentation followed directly by a brief question and answer period in which they will address some of the questions posted in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So I welcome all of you to post questions during the presentations. So our first presenter, Barbara Anderson. Barbara is the Homelessness Collaborator Facilitator for the Santa Barbara Alliance for Community Transformation, or SB ACT. She joined the SB ACT team in January 2020 after committing over a decade to private and community philanthropy in Santa Barbara County. She has a background in crisis management, working in the western region of the United States to advise private and public sector entities on emergency and business continuity planning. Barbara serves as facilitator for SBAC's Homelessness Collaborative, which is working to address the impact of homelessness in the city of Santa Barbara. So please please join me in welcoming Barbara Anderson.
Thank you so much and good afternoon. I appreciate the invitation to share our work with all of you. I especially appreciate the opportunity to be on the hopeful side of things when usually I'm coming in at the start of the crisis, much like our other panelist, Gina Carvalho, as well. So thank you so much again. We work every day with SBAC, the Santa Barbara Alliance for Community Transformation, to help our most marginalized and vulnerable populations in the city of Santa Barbara, as well as Santa Barbara County. This does include, as Pam mentioned, our Friends Without Homes, and those who are living under the poverty level on communities like the West Side, as well as women and children who have survived sexual exploitation. So what we do as SBAC is we work to empower them and change the systems. So we do this through collective impact, which is a research and evidence-based approach to addressing complex systems through effective coordination. So essentially all we do is coordinate, convene, and facilitate effective collaborations with a rigor towards strategic use of resources and measurable results. So as Pam mentioned, I started with SBAC last January. I had a couple of months of just working on homelessness before COVID-19 impacted our everyday lives. But what was so, I would say, fortunate, and the silver lining that we started with, was that we had worked since November to form a really citywide, comprehensive, inclusive collaboration of all service providers, government agencies, city elected officials and staff, business leaders, homeless care and shelter providers, and community-based organizations, all aligning towards and working towards reducing homelessness in the city of Santa Barbara. So although we had only had a few meetings together as a leadership team and as a citywide collaboration, we had formed. And so I think many of us on the panel today, as well as many of you who are listening in, have often looked at partnerships as more of a burden than a benefit. It consumes a lot of time, it consumes a lot of energy, and you might not always see those tangible results back to your staff, your colleagues, or your organization as a whole. Although you know that information sharing is beneficial and resource coordination can work when it's done and facilitated well. But what we've seen and continue to see through the COVID-19 pandemic is not only are we able to leverage those existing partnerships and collaborations to more effectively and strategically deploy resources in the community, but we're seeing new partnerships and collaborations form. And it is because this is much bigger than any one or two or three organizations. This requires all of us to work together very differently, work together very cohesively, and SBAC has been fortunate enough to be in the center of that when it comes to homelessness in the city of Santa Barbara. So because we had the collaboration already formed, and with my background in emergency management, I knew that information sharing and resource coordination was number one. And so we actually started convening twice a week a COVID-19 response task force with our collaborative partners, which allowed us to have county public health, other county departments, city departments share kind of their planning and their response efforts, as well as service providers to share their immediate needs. So what are they seeing right now, and how can we work to address, again, any gaps that existed? And so things like public restrooms, right? And hand washing stations, trying to follow CDC guidelines with those who are unsheltered, making sure that those resources were available 24/7. I laugh because I think we had public restrooms on our agenda for at least 6 weeks. And I think, again, even just working to coordinate logistically that, to have SBAC, which serves full-time in that capacity as a coordinator, absolutely helped us be able to address needs more swiftly, and to be able to do that, again, with the limited resources that we had available. Other opportunities that came along, including additional sites for showers of blessings, again, trying to reach more folks where they're at. So we saw gaps like those who live in their vehicles primarily. They have some subscriptions to the Y to take showers and to be able to utilize those facilities. But when those facilities were closed, they weren't able to practice good hygiene. And again, which was especially important during COVID-19. So increasing the availability of those shower sites. We also heard and learned that the food distribution that was being facilitated by all incredible community groups and organizations, as well as the Food Bank of Santa Barbara County, wasn't necessarily appropriate for our unsheltered population. Some of it required, can openers, refrigeration, the ability to heat things. And again, those living in vehicles and those living on the streets just are not able to do that. So we actually started with coordination with the Food Action Network, because I had worked with the Food Action Network for several years, as well as Community Environmental Council and other partners, a new community food collaborative, which actually enabled us to model our program off programs like World Central Kitchen and other things and other efforts in other communities, to look at, can we compensate the local businesses and restaurants that were also struggling to prepare and distribute meals to those, again, most vulnerable and living on our streets. So we actually were able to raise, thankful for the matching grant from Julia Child Foundation, Social Venture Partners, again, all existing collaborations, coordinated philanthropic efforts made this possible, that we were able to actually pay a premium for these beautifully prepared meals from Acme Hospitality, The Lark, Tiger, Lakita, restaurants that we're familiar with, serving the most beautiful, healthful meals to those living on the streets, again, which more than 40% of them have pre-existing chronic health conditions. Those are the ones that we should be filling with nutritious and healthful meals. And so the ability to raise resources, to compensate local restaurants so they could actually hire back laid off chefs. They were able to prepare beautiful meals. We distributed those through New Beginnings Counseling Center, as well as CityNet, again, for those living in their vehicles and on the streets. And when we needed more capacity to distribute, SB Act was able to retain recently laid off chefs to help distribute meals as well. So for us, it was this wonderful, symbiotic, mutually beneficial, mutually supportive relationship built off several existing collaborations to create yet a new one that allowed us to facilitate, again, and address food insecurity to our most vulnerable population. So things like this continue to happen, and we are so grateful for the partner organizations that we work with every single day. We recognize too that now that we've had to sustain response efforts for almost a year now, that we are looking at a new reality. We are looking at a new normal. We're looking at a new way of doing our work, of doing our business. But I do think that comes with also a silver lining, also hope, that I think all of us that kind of feed off working with other people, working across sectors, hearing different perspectives, and looking at crisis creating opportunity, crisis creating innovation. We've seen that again firsthand. And I know you'll hear that as well from the other panelists. So thank you again for the opportunity to share about SB Act, our Act on Homelessness Collaborative, and the work that we were able to facilitate in response to COVID-19, and will continue to facilitate to make sure that our most vulnerable populations have the support that they need.
Wonderful. Thank you, Barbara. I'm looking for questions in the Q&A box, and I don't see any at the moment. Any questions out there? Apparently not. So you did a great job, Barbara. Our next speaker, Reve Moran, will introduce our second speaker today. Reve, are you there?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Now here I am, and I have to change the spotlight. Let's see. Well, that's not happening. So I will just.
Okay, but we can hear you.
Yes, you can. All right.
There you are. Hello.
All right. If you can turn off your camera,
I
Pam.
will do that.
Thank you, because it's hard for me to talk and manipulate things. Okay. Our next speaker will discuss food insecurity in South Santa Barbara County. Lacey Baldavias, PhD, is the Director of Community Programs and Education at the Food Bank of Santa Barbara and is co-chair of Santa Barbara County's Food Action Network. Well, she will tell you all about that. She has a doctorate in nutritional biology from the University of California, Davis, with an emphasis in international and community nutrition. She partnered with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in West Africa to study iron supplementation during pregnancy. She also worked as a data surveillance consultant with the state of California on the development of their obesity prevention plan. As a postdoctoral student with USDA's Western Human Nutrition Research Center, Dr. Baldivias designed and implemented a large-scale nutritional phenotyping study in Davis, California. She also worked to support our county's first Food as Medicine program as executive director of Fairview Gardens in Goleta in partnership with Samsung Diabetes Research Center, and has written a food literacy educational curriculum and created innovative new programs for education and food security with the food bank. As with the previous speaker, please feel free to post questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen during the presentation, and we will then pause to cover a few questions at the end of her presentation. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Baldivias.
Thank you so much, Reve. I just want to make sure that everyone can see my slides and can hear me. Can you just confirm that?
Yes.
Good.
Thank you. Thanks so much for that nice introduction. And thank you for the opportunity to share our work at the food bank. And I just love the title of this presentation, which is Visions of Hope. I really appreciate the opportunity to share our vision with all of you and also what we've been working on during COVID-19. So there's a lot to cover today, and basically what I'm going to do is give a little background on the food bank and who we serve. I thought I'd talk a little bit about hope that we might see through some of the policy changes with the new administration. Figured that's probably relevant for this group. And then I'll talk about some of the details on removing barriers for disadvantaged populations in our county, and then some of our long-term solutions and visions, which are school partnerships and an education focus. So why we're here. Santa Barbara County, you may or may not know, has the second highest child poverty rate in the state, according to the Public Policy Institute of California. We also have the third highest overall poverty rate out of 58 counties in our state. We serve a large senior population here, as well as agricultural community. The food bank has been in action for 38 years here in the county. On a normal year, we serve about 10 million pounds of food. I can tell you during the COVID year of 2020, we bumped that up to 18 million pounds of food, almost doubling our normal amount. We cannot do this alone. As Barbara mentioned, there are hundreds of partners that we work with to accomplish this. Over 300 partners who I'll share with you in a moment. And we are proud that about 50% of the food that we provide our community members is fresh produce. Normally, we serve about 1 in 4 county residents. We have 2 warehouses, one in Goleta and one in Santa Maria. On any given day, we have about 50 staff members and about 2,500 volunteers across the county that make all of this happen. I would be totally remiss if I didn't share the vast number of partners we work with. You can see we work with specialists of all kind, healthcare, senior programs, homelessness assistance, faith-based community, a large list of wonderful partners who help make this all happen. Again, in a normal year, who we normally serve is about 40% children under the age of 18, about 12% are seniors, and about 75% identify as Hispanic or Latinx. Generally, we serve about 230,000 unduplicated people in a fiscal year, and we've seen that trend increase over the previous year. So fiscal year 20 was about a 20% increase from fiscal year 21, and as you might expect, we're looking at probably another 50% increase at least in fiscal year 21. So the food bank is always here for anyone who needs immediate nutritional assistance. That could be for any reason, but we're also really strategic in looking at how we can work to solve these issues in the long term. So for our 3-year strategic plan, we're focusing on healthy food for all, really removing barriers to the most vulnerable in our population. Long-term, building food literacy in children, in adults, anyone really. We have education at all of our programs. And we have a large focus on disaster preparedness, as you might imagine, for many reasons. And that's a key cornerstone of our upcoming work, is getting that disaster preparedness training into those neighborhoods who might be harder to reach or might have more barriers for us, and specifically getting that education available in English, Spanish, and Mixteco languages where needed. Moving on to the policy section, I just wanted to mention a few of these. Susan sent me a great article in the New York Times, which sums up a lot of this work. If you would like to follow up with that, I'm sure we can send you the link for that great article. But some of the things you might keep an eye out for are universal school meals. Currently, the federally funded programs, a family would need to qualify based on their income level to receive free and reduced lunch. And that also affects our summer program, where we provide meals for students while schools are closed over the summer. There's some gray area there where several of the areas in our county, the school might have 49% who qualify, and therefore they wouldn't qualify for the federal program, which is arguably a disservice in our opinion. So there's thought of increasing school meal access for all students. We have already seen an increase in SNAP benefits. This is the CalFresh program, or Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. We've also seen an increase in PEBT benefits. This is a pandemic EBT card similar to SNAP, but it was released for all families who have children qualifying for free and reduced lunch. It was released during the pandemic, and we've seen a 15% increase in those amounts. And the government has also been adding monthly benefits so that families can purchase local groceries to feed their children. And then the last one that we're really excited about, me personally, and I think I can speak for the Santa Barbara County Food Action Network, but national policy is looking to eliminate some of the complexities for procuring local foods. This would be specifically relevant for school nutrition programs, but it could also impact the food bank, both in our summer program and in our ability to procure local foods for general service. Next, moving on to more of our targeted programs. So as a result of the pandemic, we saw a lot of increased need among our farm workers. They're already very low income population and generally don't qualify for federal assistance. So we created this program. It serves about 200 families each week, and it rotates around. So we give them a large amount of food, up to 50 pounds of each distribution. We bring it directly into their neighborhood, and then we rotate neighborhoods each week so we can serve the next 200 families. Since July, we've served about 18,000 people. That's growing all the time. It's probably more like 20,000 as of today. And something we're really proud of with this partnership, or this program, is our partnership with community health centers. We provide our nutrition education, which I'll show you in a moment, and they provide COVID-19 education. We're happy to say we've seen the transmission rate of COVID-19 reduce among farm workers as a result of this program, from 18% down to 4% transmission. So how do we do this? We tried a lot of different things. We tried bringing food directly to the farms, but there's barriers around transportation. Oftentimes people are bused into their working location, and so then they're carrying these huge boxes of food, huge bottles of hand sanitizer and other PPE equipment. It's hard to pack that all into a small car or onto a bus with lots of people on it. So we bring it directly to their neighborhoods. We go directly to farm worker housing to offer this program. We also provide it later in the day, so people can complete their shifts and come home and still be able to get their food. And then we work with peer educators called promotoras. They teach our nutrition education in both Spanish and Mixteco. And if you don't know, Mixteco is not a written language, so we actually provide large kind of visual posters, and they can walk through that verbally, walk the beneficiaries through that. And then I have a few just quick photos of the program. These are our promotoras. They're teaching people about the USDA My Plate and how to fill your plate with plants, all the different food groups. Some images of families learning about COVID-19 safety from health educators. an example of some of the foods that we provide in our boxes, a nice balance of protein sources, fruits and vegetables. And then assistance, this shows some assistance for those with some physical limitations. We have volunteers available. We purchase carts and wagons to be able to help people take that large amount of food back home with them. We also focus, as you know, on children, as I mentioned, and so we see that for the long term, school partnerships are really important to us. We want to deepen our school partnerships. And we already have a nationally award-winning program called Healthy Community Pantries. And this program allows us to bring multiple aspects of education and resource to schools. And what we're planning to do is open 6 new pantries of this nature across the county, 3 in South County and 3 in North County for equity purposes. We targeted areas based on census tract poverty data, and then we reinforce that by looking at the free and reduced lunch rates at each school. We also focus on communities of color and disproportionate poverty, as I mentioned. And these programs are not only open for children and their families, but also for seniors or anyone else in that neighborhood who may need walking access to the program. This just gives you a quick idea of all of the healthy school pantries we either have or are aiming to open. I'm happy to report that El Camino Elementary School in Goleta will start this program on February 25th, and Lompoc High School will be starting this program on February 27th. We have been working very closely with schools throughout the pandemic, so this just shows you the scale of what we've been doing. Goleta Union School District, we've served about 109,000 pounds of food. Santa Barbara Unified, we asked them to focus just on their 2 highest need sites. And so we've, with them, provided 11,000 pounds of food. Santa Maria Bonita, we worked with them to cover a holiday distribution when their school food service would be closed to ensure that families have enough food over the holidays. That totaled about 2,800 pounds of food. And Lompoc High School, we have an ongoing relationship with, so their amount of food is much higher at about 200,000 pounds of food. These numbers are all since July. I do have a video, but I'm actually going to skip this. It's available on our YouTube channel, but I know we don't have a ton of time, so keep moving. I want to let everyone know that we do have food literacy programs we have already developed for every age group: preschool, elementary school, junior high, high school. We have our Picnic in the Park program, which covers lunches for children outside of school time. And then our Healthy School program, which I've told you about today. We've also pivoted to distance learning just in this current situation. We've created videos in English and Spanish. We're working on an online curriculum. We have take-home activity kits that kids can do with their Zoom food literacy class online. And we always provide everything in English and Spanish, Mixteco where appropriate. This is a quick example of one of the lessons for our food literacy education for elementary school students. This activity teaches them the difference between foods in their natural state, in processed state, and ultra processed foods. So this is just a little coloring activity, and they become flashcards where they guess which category the foods fall into. A little bit more about the Healthy Community Pantry. It's not just food and nutrition education. It's more of a holistic wellness idea where we have health screenings with our healthcare partners, including dental care. CalFresh Outreach, we have a specialist in-house, and she's currently building a team of specialists to assist her. Recipe demonstrations and other types of legal services available. This is just an example of one of the lessons. This is the Rethink Your Drink lesson, teaching people about sugars that are maybe hidden in beverages. And then also a list of some of the partners that we invite to the event so they can provide their education and resources to families who are in attendance. Safety is obviously of paramount importance right now, so I just wanted to touch on that briefly, that all of our programs are available drive-through or walk-up with social distancing. This is an example of people waiting in line to receive their foods, and then they're interacting with either our promotoras or other educators who are available. And then we provide PPE equipment as much as possible: masks, gloves, sanitizing wipes, and hand sanitizer. I know I flew through that. I'm so sorry. I realized I had a lot of slides, but I want to thank the League of Women Voters of Santa Barbara. I have my contact information here. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear feedback, and happy to take any questions now as well.
That's great, Dr. Valdivias. Thank you. We do have a few questions, and one of them, the first one, is just about being amazed at how you were able to double your production so quickly. How were you able to accomplish that in such a short period of time?
Yeah, many ways. I have to first recognize our staff, our programs team, our community engagement and operations. We did benefit from the USDA Farmers to Families program, and that involved a lot of other partners as well. Local partners, the Berryman, I know another one was Star Ranch. There are probably others I'm forgetting in the moment. But we were able to do that, as well as the generous donations of our community members. We purchased a lot of food as well. And so our team was working full force. And I know that also our volunteer workforce increased dramatically. We also partnered with other nonprofits to help us drive. Like, I didn't even talk about seniors, but we have a huge home delivery program for seniors that was actualized during COVID. And so we worked with Easy Lift, Community Partners in Caring, VTC in Santa Maria, as well as, oh gosh, I'm forgetting the name, but there's one more. And so we even made some paid contracts to have people assist us with those deliveries. So anything and everything you can think of, we did.
Very impressive. Someone also asked about a bill that was introduced in the House of Representatives in May 2020. It was called the Fema Empowering Essential Deliveries Act. It's been endorsed by Salud Carbajal, our local congressman, but it has not moved forward. Are you aware of any action on this legislation? And if you're not, that's fine, but I'm just wondering.
You know, I'm not. Is that particularly a food related transportation? Is that what you were mentioning?
I think it is, because I'm not the one who asked the question, but they must know about it, and we can look into that and provide them with the information. So
yeah, I'm not sure on that one. We have been working with FEMA for some reimbursement for some of that, the senior home delivery program, but no updates quite yet.
And then we just had a couple of other comments about let's get school districts to build those programs into their curriculum. And yeah, that's a great idea. So
yeah, that's definitely the next thing on our horizon. We're trying to figure out how to get more food related, you know, even culinary, nutrition, all things related to food literacy as part of curriculums, at least in our county.
Well, you're doing great work, and thank you so much. I'm going to turn the program back to Pam Flint-Tambo so she can introduce our next speaker.
Okay. Hello again. Our next speaker is James Kiriakou Jr. James comes to us from Santa Barbara, where he grew up. And he completed a Bachelor of Arts degree in Liberal Studies from Antioch University, and then a Master of Arts in Public Administration from Cal State Northridge. He and his wife, Angie, then moved to Goleta in 2010, where James started his career in local politics, working in local election campaigns and in the Goleta nonprofit community. He was elected to his first term on the Goleta City Council late in 2018, and currently he's the mayor pro tempore for that council. James represents Goleta in several organizations relating to youth and families, including Community Action Commission Board, South Coast Task Force on Youth Safety, the League of California Cities Community Services Policy Committee, and CAUSE, the Action and their Action Fund Board. He also sits on the Economic Development and Revitalization Standing Committee and the Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness Standing Committees. And then there are a number of other groups and committees that he sits on, but those I thought related particularly to youth and families and kids. When we started planning this forum, I remembered seeing an article by James in one of our local online news sites. So I contacted him to see how it was going. And then just last week, I received an email about the program and project with applications for City of Goleta families in need. So hearing from James today is timely. So welcome, James Kiriakou. Tell us about childcare opportunities and services in our city of Goleta.
Let's see, good afternoon now, and thank you so much for this opportunity to join you. I'm going to join you with the Northern Lights in my background here, so I hope that's not too distracting. Give me a moment here to see if I can get my my presentation shared. Otherwise, I will just go ahead and do it from memory here. So just give me a moment. See, can people see the presentation? Okay, great.
I can, yes.
Okay, all right. Well, so first of all, thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for this opportunity, and thank you to everyone for joining me here today. So the topic is really childcare in the Goleta area, inequities and opportunities. This was an issue that I got interested in a number of years ago when I was working with former Santa Barbara City Council member Roger Horton. And this was an issue that was really near and dear to his heart. And you know, I learned a lot from Roger. And so one of the things that I learned is about, you know, some of the tremendous resources that we have in the community, like the Child Care Planning Council, First Five, and some of the work of our local foundations. And so I tried to keep that front of mind as I began my work, because, you know, to me, childcare is the local issue that's been hiding in plain sight. It's the issue that doesn't get a lot of attention, but it affects so many families, both financially, educationally. It's the source of tremendous stress or tremendous stress relief. So some of the data that I'll be presenting will be provided by the most recent Santa Barbara County Child Care Planning Council's needs assessment, which was last conducted in 2016. So this information is going to be a little bit old. But what you can see from the slide is that just in the 2 zip codes that Goleta either has to itself or shares with Isla Vista and the unincorporated Goleta Valley, we have over 3,000 children between the ages of 0 and 12 that lack childcare. And when I say lack childcare, what I'm referring to is lacking access to affordable, accessible, quality, licensed childcare. In the amount of time that I have for this presentation, I probably won't touch as much on quality as I will on affordability and access, just in the interest of time. But those are really like the 3 main issues: the quality, the access, and the affordability, and they're all interrelated. So in Goleta, when you look at ages 0 to 2 infants, the most important years, you can see that in 93111, we have 166 children that are lacking access to licensed care, 148 children in 93117. So that's a significant deficit, 314. In the Goleta Valley area, we have, depending upon where you want to start measuring, you have between 30 and 60,000 folks. So that's a significant impact. When you move into ages 3 to 5, toddlers getting into the pre-K group, you have 339 children in 93111 and a whopping 930 children in 93117. So that's a deficit of 1,269 children. And so that has real impacts on our local families. Then once you get into the school-age kids, where you're more talking about after-school care, in the interest of time, I'll just fast forward. So you've got about 1,700 spaces that are not filled right now, that are not filled, that are needed. There's that deficit. So and the other problem is really affordability. For so many of our working families, next to their cost of housing, childcare is their second biggest expense, bigger than their car payment, bigger than their student loans. It's significant. These are averages. So, and it's a very wide array of averages, because there are programs out there where there's a lot of parental involvement, and then there's other programs where it's more, the parent basically just drops off the child, and that's the extent of their engagement. So there's definitely a wide range in this average. But as of 2016, the average cost per child per month was $1,154 on the South Coast for infants, $902 per month for toddlers, and $535 per month for school-age children. And this is for center-based care, where it's like an actual child care center, a center-based solution. Family care, where it's in-home child care, the costs roughly track $865 for infants, $799 for toddlers, $693 a month for school-age kids. So this sort of begs the question, why are these problems a problem? And there are both economic reasons for this and community reasons for this. Economically, the National Chamber of Commerce, hardly a kind of bleeding heart progressive organization, has identified childcare as a major barrier to economic development, a major barrier to the success of businesses. They've estimated that there's a $3 billion annual economic impact on businesses caused by the lack of affordable quality childcare for their employees. As someone who works in human resources by day here locally, I can tell you that closely tracking with housing, the cost of childcare is another barrier to attracting employees that are moving here that would be moving here from out of the area. It's a barrier to retaining employees. What tends to happen, particularly with women, is they will leave the workforce for a period of years because there is a lack of access to care, or the cost of it is so high that it fiscally seems to make more sense in the moment to just go ahead and drop out of the workforce for a few years and care for that child. And that has a significant impact on their careers, on their future retirement savings. Those lost years of income and accrual and compounding, you never get that income back. So that's a major issue, a major equity issue. And it creates issues with morale. There was a survey that was done locally a number of years ago when we were exploring the idea of having a downtown childcare center. And it was found that 75% of employees had experienced a coworker who was frequently absent or tardy because of issues with their childcare falling through. And so that creates issues with morale, that creates issues with comity in the workplace. Another significant economic issue is, at the end of the day, every dollar that you're spending on childcare is a dollar that you're not spending on reducing your debt, on saving for a home, traveling, doing other things, saving for the future. And so that impacts our local economy, because that's not money that you're spending in our local economy. And then at the end of the day, the less prepared our children are from a lack of affordable, accessible, quality childcare, the less educated, the less competent the workforce of tomorrow will be. Those first 5 years in particular are so important to brain growth, especially the first 3 of those 5 are so important to brain growth and the ability of a child to develop and function. It's a major issue. There's also significant community issues created by this. High costs that hold families back from advancing. I've mentioned that. The stress and anxiety that's created, as I mentioned, affects a child's entire life. I have a bullet here that says failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And that's what when I'm talking about the issue hiding in plain sight, that's what I mean. If you're not taking steps proactively to address this problem, you're just setting yourself up to fail in the future. And as I already referenced earlier, the inequality of it all. So what can we do? And now this is really more getting into the meat of my presentation. So let's talk about what we did in Goleta. So when I was elected in November of 2018, this was one of the first issues I wanted to tackle. And I encountered a lot of resistance. I encountered resistance from the local Chamber of Commerce. They didn't see what this had to do with the city. They didn't really think it was something with our local Chamber of Commerce, not the National Chamber of Commerce. Our local Chamber of Commerce was a little bit resistant, didn't really see the nexus with this at first. I remember actually giving a presentation to the local chamber and just kind of watching, you know, the eyes of the local executives kind of glaze over when I would ask them questions like, you know, is childcare an issue in your workplace? Have you talked to your employees? Do you know? A lot of people didn't seem to know. Fast forward to a couple of years later, with COVID and now the newly merged chambers of commerce, they're working on their roadmap to recovery, and they did an entire focus group on childcare. And the stories that they're hearing are heartbreaking and they're frustrating, and it's really galvanizing them to action. So that's an example of what local leadership can do. In Goleta, the first thing we did was we went ahead and updated our zoning ordinance. We were still using the county zoning when I came on board the city council in 2018. And so one of the first things that we did was we worked with our planning staff, who, as it just so happens, attended the American Planning Association conference at the Bacara here in Goleta this past year, and saw that there was a breakout session on childcare, and it really gave them some insights into the power of zoning. When you're requiring a major conditional use permit to put a childcare center in a business park, that's going to create a very powerful barrier in terms of time, cost, et cetera, just general inertia to putting a childcare in. So one of the first things that we did was we revisited our zoning, and we either eliminated the conditional use permit requirement or we just made things approvable at the counter. Another thing that we did is we created what were called beneficial project categories. So in the past, Goleta would charge very exceptional, very high development impact fees, because in Goleta, we don't want to see a lot of housing or other types of development if it's not going to help pay for the impacts of growth. Impacts of growth has been an incredibly controversial issue in this community going back to the 60s. And in Goleta, one of the ways that we've always dealt with it is we charge the developer fees that help to mitigate the needs created by the development, whether it's parks, whether it's public safety, et cetera. So I got us to waive development impact fees if someone was putting in a childcare center. If it's a nonprofit, we would waive the fees. If it was a for-profit center, we would waive 85% of the fees. Another thing that we did is we started partnering with local agencies like the Santa Barbara Foundation and the United Way, and Santa Barbara County Children's Resource and Referral. So when COVID happened, one of the things that became very obvious to us was that more centers were closing. That's reducing access. And that's putting a lot of pressure on our local childcare infrastructure. And it was also putting a lot of pressure on families who were suddenly very nervous about their future, about their ability to pay. And so what we did was we granted money to the Santa Barbara Foundation to help more with the 0 to 5 population. And we granted money to the United Way to help with the 6 to 12-year-old population. And so that created opportunities for the United Way and the Santa Barbara Foundation to go to local childcare providers and really use their leverage to negotiate better prices and to be able to reduce the cost of care. And I believe in some cases they've been able to reduce the cost by $100 a week. I believe the United Way has been able to reduce the cost by $100 a week that way. So these are just some examples of what we can do and what we have done locally. I'll close with this. I think these are really, I titled this slide Remaining Challenges, but I also think there's opportunities here. So one of the first challenges is that our local cities, they don't have an in-house expert. So if someone is working on their zoning, if someone is working on their policies, they don't have someone that they can turn to and say, well, what is this going to do to childcare impacts? You know, if we're updating our zoning, are we even aware of the rules? Are we aware of the new rules coming down from Sacramento? For example, there were some local planners that I talked to. They weren't aware that the state Senate had passed a bill that made large family daycare centers in-home care by right. You cannot actually legally anymore require them to go through an extensive planning process. You can require them to have a business license, but you cannot require them to go through an extensive planning process. That wasn't necessarily terribly well known in our planning community. So cities don't necessarily have these resources that they can just turn to right now. And they don't necessarily always know where to go. There's a lot of different organizations in town. There's First Five, there's Child Care Planning Council, but they don't have someone that's their own person. Cities also don't always realize that they can be part of the solution. A lot of times cities tend to think that this is a county thing, or they think it's a statewide thing, and they think that the tobacco tax really solved the problem. They don't necessarily know that they can be part of the solution. I always like to say there's not enough money in the system. And what I mean by that is, at the end of the day, whether you're talking about teacher salaries, whether you're talking about the cost of care, there's just not enough money available for people that are kind of, in particular, in that missing middle. There's a lot of parallels between the issues around affordable housing and the issues with childcare. A lot of the same cost drivers. If you want to put a childcare center in, there's construction costs, there's development costs, and those really track with the same challenge for building affordable housing. The more expensive your land is, the more expensive your childcare is going to be. And that doesn't do anything to raise teacher salaries. And teacher salaries are a real barrier to getting more teachers. So we're going to have to figure out a way as a community or as a state or as a country to better fund childcare generally. The basic bargain that was made when we decided as a country to go to a 2-income or more workforce has been broken, because we've sort of forgotten about the kids and the impacts that are created when 2 incomes are required. Well, who's looking after the children? Who's caring for our children? There are costs that are created by our economic model today, and they're basically being subsidized by families themselves. They're having to just handle those costs. And finally, I would say that quality counts. Having an aunt or a relative or a friend or a well-intentioned adult who is looking after your children can be a great solution, especially on a temporary basis, but quality counts. And the people that are on the front lines that are early childhood education teachers, they're not babysitters. They're the people that are shaping the lives of your future workforce and your future community members. And they should be treated with dignity, they should be well paid, they should be well trained, and they shouldn't be treated like babysitters, and too often they are. With that, I will just wrap up by saying thank you so much for this opportunity, and I look forward to answering any questions. But my bottom line thesis here is cities have to start paying attention. Cities have to start recognizing that they are part of this solution, and they have to start recognizing that this is a real problem that's not going away. And I hope they'll look to some of the things that we've done in Goleta. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Let's see, am I on? I don't know. We have one comment. I'm getting a message that my internet connection is unstable, so we'll see if I continue to talk or not. There's one comment in the chat box, and it is that childcare is such an important topic, and it is a burden mothers and women carry, and a need that needs to be addressed by the whole community. There's an amazing yet sad commentary, a documentary about child care called Through the Night, a must-see. This comes from someone named G. Dodson. So thank you. Through the Night, a must-see documentary.
Thank you so much for that, and for that comment. I'll just add that increasingly more of the burden is also being shouldered by men. It's not exclusively a women's issue, but especially as our our parental relationships and our human relationships change and become more accepted, there's definitely a little bit more burden sharing. But statistically speaking, and just in lived experience, overwhelmingly the burden is shouldered by women. That is an undeniable fact.
Yeah.
Thank you, James. I'm going to jump in here. It's Reve, and because I want to give our next speaker enough time, so I'm going to jump in and start introducing her. Gina Carvalho is the Executive Director of Santa Barbara's Response Network. It's a nonprofit organization that mobilizes kind and caring volunteers and provides them with training in how to provide compassionate social support in the aftermath of tragic events, including the impact of COVID-19 on our mental health. Their trained volunteers offer services such as psychological first aid, stress management, education, short-term coping and long-term wellness behaviors, and make referrals to local agencies for continued care. It was initially established in 2009, but I'm going to cut off the introduction here so that you have more time to tell us about what you do and about the Response Network. Thank you for joining us, Gina.
Thank you. Thank you all for hanging in here. And I want to thank our distinguished panelists that preceded me, because this work takes a community and everyone here is doing an amazing job. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm just going to go and speak. I'm not going to use PowerPoint. I'm going to let you experience firsthand what I mean by psychological first aid. So when the Santa Barbara Response Network was formed, we were responding to what we call a suicide cluster in our Latino community, where young men were committing suicide at a rapid rate. We had someone come in and train the community and volunteers on the evidence-based intervention called psychological first aid. There's a tremendous amount of research that when we meet with someone who has been impacted by a trauma, and we are now in a sustained trauma, and if you engage with them with the basic core actions, which is basically being present, being attuned, and being there for them, that you can circumvent long-term PTSD. So over the 12 years that SBRN has been in existence, we have responded to every major disaster in our community: the fires, the debris flow, homicides, family homicides, deaths, suicides. And what we do is we have trained the community in psychological first aid. Everyone who responds has been trained. This is open to each of you. We do ongoing trainings in psychological first aid. And when we are contacted through the network, we have a 24-hour hotline, and I can put the number in the chat, 805-699-5688. If you call that line and tell us that you need psychological support because you're experiencing some form of trauma, we will reach out to our volunteers and see and set up some support for you. The beauty of psychological first aid, and you say, how is that different from going to a therapist? We do not do therapy. We are not therapists. We are community to community friends and partners helping each other. It's a non-hierarchical response. I'm with you, just like the Red Cross comes after there's a disaster, and I am with you, and I help you to find the services that you need to recover. You guide me in that process. When we talk about hope and visions of hope, and I know our time is where it is, that one of the most impactful and powerful things that have helped our community to heal, I mean, I'm in the mental health area, and yes, we are deeply, deeply impacted, is the collaborations that have, as Barbara said and others in this call, have come together. I recently was responding to the recent shootings in our community. You know, there's been some shootings in Bolita and also in near the Milpas area, that we had families deeply impacted in youth. But we were able to mobilize and still set up our response, which we often call compassion centers, at a safe distance, and we were still able to offer the support. The collaborations that we are involved in are, I'm very involved with the community engagement team, which is all the youth providers that come together, and all the mental health agencies. We meet weekly to discuss the needs in the community. We are also working with the Mixteco community, the farm worker community, and we've taken our responses on Facebook Live. We have weekly English and Spanish Facebook Live compassion centers where we deal with the critical mental health needs of our community. The hope and the vision that I see coming out of COVID is that we heal in community. We hurt in community, we heal in community. And we have formed and are continuing to form all of these collaborations. We're able to get services for people as soon as they need them. What we do for you and for anyone who may need support, if you reach out or go to our website, sbresponsenetwork.org, you'll find all the information about what we do. I invite you to come to a training. We're actually doing one for Antioch on Friday afternoon. You're very welcome to join to learn the basic skills. And one other thing that's grown out of this pandemic is the focus of our trainings is on self-care. And if I can tell each of you one thing, that in order to be present for those around you or anyone hurting, you have to, as they say in the airplane, put the mask on first. So please, everyone, if I can make one appeal, take very, very good care of yourselves on all of the levels. And in our trainings now, we're teaching our participants and the people in the community about self-care, because with COVID, that's an essential compartment to healing. So I went through this fairly quickly, but basically we're here, the Response Network for you and anyone who has been impacted by trauma, and we'll be able to find you the help and services that you need and connect you for long-term healing. And the beauty and the gem of SBRN is that it's all free, it's multi-language, and our community wants to help each other, and SBRN provides that vehicle for us to be able to help others and help us heal together. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. That was wonderful. We don't have any new questions, so in the interest of time, I'm going to just skip ahead. But thank you so much for your presentation. And if you want to put in the chat where people can find the information that they need to connect with your response network, that would be fabulous. I'm going to refer anyone who wants to discuss these issues further, that we're going to have an informal discussion group on Tuesday, February 9th at 5:30 via Zoom. We have these monthly, and they are on the second Tuesday of each month. And we refer you to those discussion groups because it's always about what our most recent community forum topic was. So this one's going to be excellent. And you can go to our website for more details. And I'm going to put the website again in our chat, in the chat. So you can see it right there. And look on our calendar. Our next community forum, again, as Vijaya mentioned earlier, is February 17th at noon. We're going to talk about the work of our league and how you can help us make democracy work, which is very exciting stuff, including some of our upcoming city council races where we will have, and the mayor's race, where we'll have community forums, candidate forums for those, where we'll have all the candidates, and those will be live streamed as well and recorded, and we'll post those on our website. We will be posting the recording of this meeting on our website as well. So if you go to that all important league address, you will find all that information. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to all of our speakers, and please, everyone, stay safe. and stay well. Thank you for attending.